Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at something lots of us think about, maybe even dream about, which is buying a car.
Yeah, and maybe not just any car, right? Perhaps that specific dream car you've imagined yourself in.
Exactly. And our sources today really, they pit that dream against the hard financial facts. They kick off with this really vivid scene from a movie, Lucky Bhaskar.
Oh yeah, I remember reading that. It's quite striking.
So the source describes how the main character first shows up at this fancy jewelry store in like a basic Maruti 800.
And what happens? Total brush off.
Pretty much. The valet just ignores him, won't even park the car. He has to park it himself. Then he goes inside, asks for water.
And gets told to get it himself. Yeah, like he doesn't exist.
Exact. Zero respect, zero service. But then the source shows him coming back later, same guy, but this time.
This time he's in some expensive limited edition car. Big difference, I bet.
It's huge. Suddenly the valet's all over him. The owner comes out. He gets offered juice, the whole VIP thing.
Wow, it's such a clear illustration, isn't it?
It really is. And the source uses it to show how, well, how people might perceive you, the respect you get, can change drastically based just on the car you drive.
Yeah, they mentioned another example too, didn't they? Like pulling up to a five-star hotel.
Right. Show up in a sports car, you get parked right out front, arrive in a little hatchback. Maybe they tuck you away somewhere else.
It just shows how much a car can act as this instant status symbol. It changes how people react to you sometimes.
And that connects right back to that dream car idea, doesn't it? Maybe part of why you want it is that feeling.
That 5-minute pleasure, that feel-good factor, the source calls it, that sense of arrival.
It's definitely a powerful feeling, but, and this is the big question the source asks right away, is that feeling, that temporary boost, really worth spending lakhs, maybe even crores?
Is that, true wisdom?
Yeah.
That's where the financial reality check comes in.
Yeah, and the sources dive deep into how people actually buy cars. I was surprised, actually, that in India, something like 60% of cars are bought on EMI, financed.
That's a huge number. And it's interesting because the source contrasts that with data on millionaires.
Right. What was that again?
Globally, apparently 8 out of 10 millionaires own their cars outright, no debt. In India, it's a bit different. More like 6 out of 10 millionaires finance their cars.
So still a majority financing in India, even among millionaires, but globally it's the opposite. Suggests financing is super common here, but maybe not always the path taken by those who've built significant wealth elsewhere.
Exactly. And that leads to a really critical point the sources hammer home. The difference between what a bank says you can borrow.
And what's actually smart for you financially.
Precisely. Banks use something called the debt-to-income ratio, or DTI.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, basically, they look at your income, usually your gross income before taxes, and figure out how much debt they think you can handle. The source mentions banks might approve loans where up to, get this, 45% of your income goes to paying off debts.
45%? Wow, that sounds like a lot. Almost half your income just servicing loans.
It is a lot. And the source really warns against this. Just because a bank approves you for a huge car loan, based on that 35% number, doesn't mean you should take it.
Because taking the max loan is often just about show and could land you in trouble.
That's what the source suggests. It can lead to real financial strain. So the question becomes, if the bank's limit isn't the best guide, what is?
And this is where they introduce that rule, right? The one designed to give you a more realistic picture.
Exactly. The source calls it the 24-10 rule.
Okay, 24-10. Break it down for us. What do the numbers mean?
Sure. It's pretty simple, actually. 3 parts. The 20 is about the down payment.
Okay.
The rule says you should really aim for a minimum 20% down payment on the car.
Right, 20% down. That makes sense, lowers the amount you borrow. What's the 4?
The 4 is about the loan duration. Maximum 4 years.
4 years max. Why so short? People often take longer loans, don't they?
They do, often 5, 6, even 7 years. But the source argues that a shorter term, like 4 years, saves you a lot in interest costs overall. Plus, you own the car faster.
Okay, so minimum 20% down. Finance for no more than 4 years. Got it. What about the 10? That sounds important.
It is maybe the most important part for everyday affordability. The 10 means your total car expenses shouldn't be more than 10% of your monthly income.
Total expenses, so not just the EMI payment.
No, absolutely not. That's the key. It's the EMI plus your estimated costs for petrol, electricity, insurance, maintenance, repairs, everything bundled together.
Okay. All of that shouldn't exceed 10% of what you bring home each month.
Exactly, your take-home pay.
Let's make that concrete. The source had some examples, right? Like
Right.
someone earning $50,000 a month.
Yeah, So for someone earning 50K a month, 10% of that is 5,000.
5,000 rupees. Okay.
Now think about it. Can 5,000 cover a monthly car payment and fuel and insurance and upkeep on almost any new car?
Hmm. Probably not. I mean, even a small car's EMI might eat up most of that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So according to this rule, the source basically says a car, especially a new one, is likely out of reach financially at that income level.
And suggests maybe a motorbike or public transport is the more sensible option then. Trying to force a car into that budget would just cause stress.
It really highlights the gap between just managing a loan payment versus comfortably affording the total cost of ownership.
Okay, now what about the dream car? The Land Rover Defender example.
Ah, yes, the Defender. Big aspiration for many, as the source points out. Price tag is around, what, 1.2 crore on the road?
Yeah, something like that. Huge number. So how does 2410 apply there?
Okay, let's run the numbers like the source did. 20% down on 1.2 crore. The source used 20 lakhs. Let's stick with that for consistency, even if the math is slightly off.
Right, 20 lakhs down. That leaves 1 crore to finance.
And the rule says finance over maximum 4 years. Using the source's assumed interest rate of around 9.8%, that works out to a monthly EMI of roughly 2.5 lakhs.
2.5 lakhs. Just for the loan payment each month.
Yep, but remember the 10% rule covers total costs.
Ah, right. So you have to add fuel, insurance, maintenance.
Exactly, and depreciation is a big hidden cost too. The source estimates you should add at least another 20% of the EMI for all those extras, so another 50,000 or so per month.
Okay, so 2.5 lakhs EMI plus 50K extras brings the total estimated monthly cost to around 3 lakhs.
That's the figure the source lands on. Roughly 3 lakhs a month to own and operate that Defender.
Wow. Okay, now apply the 10% rule. If 3 lakhs is 10%,
Then your monthly income needs to be 30 lakhs.
30 lakhs a month to comfortably afford that car by this rule.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
And, the source contrasts this sharply with what a bank might do using that 45% DTI rule.
Right, the bank might approve that 2.5 lakh EMI for someone earning much less, like maybe 6 lakhs a month.
Exactly. Which, according to the source, would be a classic case of buying for show-off, approved by the bank but financially unwise, according to the 2410 principle. It really stretches you thin.
Yeah, it fundamentally challenges that idea many people have of a car being an asset.
It absolutely does. The source is very clear. Cars are liabilities. They pull on that rich dad, poor dad definition, right? An asset puts money in your pocket.
And a liability takes money out, which cars definitely do. EMI, fuel, insurance, repairs, and depreciation.
Oh yeah, depreciation is a killer. The source breaks down the numbers. It's something like, what, 11% value lost the second you drive off the lot?
Something like that. Then after 1 year, maybe 25% gone. After 3 years.
Almost half, like 46% down.
Yeah.
And by 5 years, you've lost around 63% of what you paid.
That initial drop is just huge.
It really is. And that's why the source talks about a potential sweet spot for buying cars.
You mean buying used?
Exactly. Especially looking at cars that are maybe 3 to 5 years old.
Because most of that really steep depreciation has already happened by then.
That's the idea. You let the first owner take the biggest hit. The source also mentions checking the mileage, suggesting maybe 40,000 to 50,000 kilometers is typical for that age in India, perhaps more in places like the US or Dubai with different driving conditions.
So you get a reasonably modern car, likely still reliable, but at a much lower price point. Seems like a smarter financial move based on this logic.
It definitely leans that way. The source also gives some interesting context about car ownership levels.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, only about 7.5% of households in India own a car. Compare that to the US, where it's like 92%.
Wow, 7.5% versus 92%. That's a massive difference. Shows a huge potential market growth in India.
For sure. And maybe that demand contributes to another point the source makes, that car prices in India have shot up by around 50% in just the last 5 years.
50%, that's huge. What do they blame that on?
Well, high demand is part of it, but the source also uses the word greed in the market.
Well, a 50% price hike definitely makes sticking to a budget rule like 2410 even more important if you're trying to buy wisely today.
Absolutely. The source keeps coming back to that. Following the 2410 rule isn't just, random advice. It's presented as a kind of discipline for financial health regarding cars.
Forcing you to look at the total cost, not just the shiny monthly payment the dealer might quote you.
Right. And think about it relative to your actual income.
They had that personal story too, didn't they? Comparing their used Ford Figo to a friend's BMW.
Yeah, that was quite telling. They were earning similar amounts at the time. The speaker bought the used Figo. The friend bought a new BMW.
And the friend ended up.
Well, according to the source, A huge chunk of the friend's money just got funneled into the BMW payments, upkeep, everything.
Mm.
Less left over for saving, investing, family stuff.
It shows the trade-offs, doesn't it? Overextending for a car means sacrificing other things.
Definitely. And that connects to another sort of philosophical point the source makes.
Which is,
They ask you to imagine, if you found out you only had 1 month left to live, what would you prioritize? Would buying a new car be top of the list?
probably not for most people.
Right. The source suggests you'd likely focus on family, experiences, maybe travel, spiritual things, stuff that often gets pushed aside when we chase material goals like expensive cars.
They mentioned their own Mercedes just sitting there during COVID, too, losing value.
Yeah, reinforces that idea that a car isn't everything, and it costs you money even when it's parked. It's a tool, maybe gives a temporary boost, but shouldn't dominate your financial life.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. This deep dive, looking through these sources, it really seems to position the 24/10 rule as a sensible guide.
Yeah, a practical framework to figure out if a car purchase really fits your financial picture beyond just getting loan approval.
Those key parts, 20% down minimum, 4 years max for the loan, and keeping all those car costs, EMI, fuel, insurance, the lot, under 10% of your monthly income.
It forces a realistic assessment.
So here's the final thought, building on what we've discussed from the sources. Given the big upfront costs, how fast cars lose value, and this idea that they're basically liabilities providing maybe a short-term status boost,
Yeah,
how does that desire for your dream car really stack up against your long-term financial goals and, maybe more importantly, what you truly value in life?
definitely something to ponder.